My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have a killingly baseball player, the pitcher himself, who threw a no-hitter against Putnam not too long ago, Brandon Baker. He'll be heading to UConn Avery Point in the fall with my guy, Coach Ian Ratchford. Brandon, great to be able to have you on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me out.
You know, Brandon, obviously there's a lot to be able to kind of talk about in such a short amount of time that I have you on here. But with you being a senior, I mean, time has really flown by since you were a freshman, man.
Yeah, COVID, that seemed like a blink of an eye. And then we came out senior year, and last year even went by fast.
Now, I think when you think about it, and I'm sure you have too. Now, if I recall, your sophomore season was lost because of COVID, correct?
Yeah, we didn't have a season at all that year.
Okay. So only having that freshman year, man, I mean, just take me into your freshman year, because like we talked about, your sophomore year was non-existent.
Yeah, so freshman year, I played basically only JV. I got a varsity jersey, but the thing I most remember about freshman year is the playoffs. We faced up against Ken Turner from Ledyard, who was throwing 90, and that was kind of my first like real varsity experience in ECCs, where I kind of realized like, oh, this is what baseball is. Like, it's not a bunch of kids throwing the ball around all over the place. It's kids who can throw 90, spot their fastball, spot their off speed, and all around player.
Especially too when you speak of Ken Turner, who I had the opportunity to see a little bit when he pitched for the Bristol Blues. Young man was drafted by, I think, the Rangers, 15th, 20 rounds, something like that. Decided to go to college, and I think that probably was the best move on his part, doing very, very well at the college level. You being able to see that and kind of just get your feet wet, get the exposure at the varsity level, even though, and I know nobody could have ever predicted uh, to lose a season, especially for you to lose your sophomore season because of COVID-19. Do you feel like in some ways that playing your freshman year or just kind of getting that exposure and seeing it allowed you to at least know, going into your junior year, like, okay, at least I've been through the grind a little bit?
Yeah, I think it gave me an idea of what varsity baseball players do. I still don't think I fully understood like the workload and the off season part of it, which I don't think I understood that until this year. The off season, how hard you really have to work to improve and get better at baseball, because that really hit me when last year I came in here and there to pitch, but I worked harder this year, harder than any other year I've pitched or played, and I didn't realize how hard like those players actually work to get there.
Now you speak about, working hard and, putting in the work. Uh, is that something that kind of clicked, or something that kind of you maybe just like, did that come natural? Like, okay, I have to do this. Or was it somebody that kind of was maybe pushing you a little bit, saying, hey, there's more in the tank, but you got to put in a little bit more work?
I think it was a mix of both. I mean, my dad's always been on my case about pitching and baseball, because he's always worked with me, and I didn't really have like an actual pitching coach until like 2 years ago. So he kind of always pushed me. He's like, "Oh, you have a few friends, go to the cage or go throw, do something." But also, I think I realized like I'm not gonna have another shot after this year if I wasn't gonna play college baseball. Like this was gonna be my one shot to prove myself that I could be a solid pitcher.
Now, again, to go back to the sophomore season and not having it, uh, how difficult was it for you? Because at times, I don't think we as a society knew if COVID was ever going to go away. I mean, if you listen to the media and to the news outlets, you would think that COVID was here, basically right next to your couch. Like if you even looked at it, you were going to die. Now things have come out and things are better and such, the vaccines and everything. For you, man, do you feel like that kind of going through that run of kind of just going through the work part, making sure you kind of train yourself through that time? Do you feel like it helped you as well?
I think I could have taken advantage of COVID more than I actually did.
Mhm.
I think in the beginning when, like, school shut down and I found out everything was canceled, I kinda lost, like, all motivation to do stuff, and for, like, a solid month or 2, I didn't really want to, and then I heard, like, my local Legion team, because I didn't know if AAU was running or any of that. I heard my local Legion team was putting together, like, a small season, and that's kinda what got me back going towards baseball and, like, getting ramped back up, and I think I could have taken more advantage of COVID and that whole like 3, 4 months of nothing.
Now, you mentioned about the Legion team and at least getting something. Is that the big reason for you to kind of get your motivation back, or was there anything else? Because you mentioned about your dad. I'm sure he was trying, not to push, not to like nag you or say, "Hey, you have to do this," but just try to keep the morale up and have you not lose sight of the bright future at the time that maybe you didn't know that you had.
I definitely think the Legion team helped because if I didn't do anything during that time, I don't know if I'd be anywhere close to I where I am now because just sitting there and not touching a baseball would have been my the worst thing I could have done.
So the summer, that Legion team, that summer season, in a sense, would you say that that kind of helped propel? I mean, your freshman year, you really didn't play a lot of varsity, so it's hard to kind of get your name out there. Not having a sophomore season really hurts. But with you being able to play in the summer, were you able to kind of get your name out a little bit as far as to, I know it's early as far as kind of at that time to get colleges and such to look at you, but at least kind of get your name out and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, even though I lost my sophomore season.
Honestly, I don't think I got my name out there towards colleges until maybe the end of last summer. I think that's really when I got my name out. I played my AU coach, Anthony Fiolis from Rhode Island. He really helped push me to reach out to coaches, send videos, realize that I could play college baseball, and he really pushed me to get to that level with recruitment and dealing with all that.
And because of that side, would you say that now looking at it, because you're at you kind of every point, being able to see yourself have an opportunity to be able to continue playing baseball, would you say that was a main factor for how you were able to at the time get your name out?
Yeah, I would say that he was probably the main factor for me getting my name out there, and playing last year was probably my biggest factor. So the year after COVID would definitely be my biggest factor for getting my name out there.
I want to talk about last year. And I know that the season did not end the way you wanted to and the team wanted to, losing to Tolland in the state. I think that was the first round game. But the season as a whole, Killingly really, you guys put your name. I mean, everybody knew who Killingly was. And I think a lot of it, because of the media, because they look for, okay, who's the star, even though I felt like, Killingly had a lot of talent. Obviously, Bo Jaworski was a big factor. I had him here on the podcast, great kid, killing it at Mitchell, just destroying it, especially his brother, too. I mean, shocker there, Hunter. Uh, but there's just more, there's so much talent both from last year and even this year too. I feel like there's even more. Do you ever kind of step back, or when you were on the bump last year, just say to yourself like, I'm just around so much ability?
And yeah, I do think that, especially last year, because I was frustrated at times seeing Bo and Jay, all of them pitch, but I knew they deserved it. They played amazing last year. Bo had a crazy season, all state. Jay was all conference. And then we had a bench arm in Colavine, or not a bench arm, but our third pitcher, reliever, who won us the ECC chip. He pitched that whole game, shoved, shutout.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of made me realize that we are a very talented team. Even this year, losing them, we're still going to be a talented team. And I need to work to be on that talented team.
So what kind of work did you put into knowing that you saw kind of what Bo kind of was able to do, what Jay did last year, and what he's doing this year. I think he's picked up right where he left off. And I would say, and I think a lot of people would agree, he's even better this year than what he was last year. Velocity, the stuff, his delivery as well looks smoother. Um, Knowing what you saw, what did you do? What did you do to try to prepare yourself for what was a huge senior season, both to try to be able to play in college, but also for yourself to get some time on the mound?
I did some strength work. I think I was definitely lacking. I gained probably 15 pounds since last year, which I think was a major part in just velocity and staying healthy. I did a lot of control work too, because that's where I really lacked last year. Even in the beginning this year, I struggled with walks, and that was probably the worst part of my game.
Mm-hmm.
And so the control work, I did a lot of spotting with my pitching coach and being able to control my off speed with my fastball. Those were major parts of my off season.
The walk side, is that now, how tall are you?
I'm 6'3", 6'2", 6'3".
Okay, and with you being as young as you are, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a former pitcher myself, all the way through college. Would you say that because you're tall, 6'3", 6'4", 6'2", whatever you are, to you know being as young to try to get used to a long delivery, the long stride, long arms. You're growing into your body, your delivery, like you said, 15 pounds of muscle. Um, is it fair to say that you know you trying to know your delivery and you're still kind of figuring that out, and that maybe is why the walks kind of were an issue in the early part of your career?
I think it had to do with lack of reps and repeatability. I think I was less repeatable with my motion last year, especially like you're saying long. I was just inconsistent movements. Like my movement patterns weren't the same every time. I think I'd had to work on being more athletic on the mound and
Mm-hmm.
not being mechanical, robotic, like a robot. And that really helped me have more control. I was trying to focus too much on mechanics and it became robotic.
So what did you do to make yourself more athletic on the mound?
I definitely think mobility work, getting my hips more into it, and being able to just be more flexible and not stiff, that helped a lot. And I probably run and do more like lateral movements, including in my workouts, not just lifting, so that way I wouldn't get more stiff and be robotic. So like being explosive, moving around a lot, mobility, stuff like that.
You mentioned about the hips and being stiff. And for people who may not know, I want to make sure I try to explain so that way who maybe, people who may not know baseball 100% can kind of visualize it. So when you talk about the hip rotation, the movement, you're talking about almost like a rubber band in a sense, where you're kind of stretching it out. And then just like, when you stretch it as far as you can and you let it go, it fires. Is that what you're talking about as far as the rotation and the movements with your hips trying to bring that energy towards home plate?
Yeah, so when you stride out, you want to kind of stay lateral until you turn, and your upper body should stay lateral. So it's kind of delayed. Your arm should be more delayed than your hips, and your hips kind of lead everything forward. So when you stride down the mound, your hips turn, and that should be your first kind of movement.
Mm-hmm. You can't forget too, I'm sure you know this, but also too the core. The core is a massive part for a pitcher. Same thing for a hitter, but since we're talking about pitching, because we talk about the legs drive the car in a sense because they're the wheels. They kind of get it moving. But the core is the steering wheel that helps steer you go one way or another. So for you, for the core aspect, is that something that's still in a work in progress for you?
Definitely, I think there's a lot of things that are still work in progress. I mean, I'm never done. You're never going to be done working on core strength, any strength,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like core and back are probably the biggest two that I work on, including my legs. Legs were probably first because that was my weakest point. but core, back, and legs are the main parts that I focus on.
And with all the work that you were able to, all the, the saying, blood, sweat, and tears, putting all that into, your craft, your game, to be able to, when you played against Putnam, you throw the no hitter. Did you ever envision ever throwing a no hitter?
This year, probably not. I mean, it was kind of came up on me even because in that during that game, I when the first 9 batters I struck out, which was I was kind of thinking I was like, wow, it's going really well. And then I knew last year Bo broke the strikeout record at 18, and that was kind of my first thought. Like I was like, that's what I want to get. I want to get the 18 strikeouts to either tie him and 19 to pass him. That was kind of the first thought in my head. And then I think had a perfect game through 3, and then a drop third strike got the first batter or the first runner on base, and that's kind of when I realized, oh, I had like a perfect game going on. I still have a no hitter.
How did you keep yourself focused? Because a lot of times when you think of, I think of pitchers who, because it's almost like an emotional letdown. When a pitcher loses the no hitter or the perfect game, it's like it's almost like you kind of like put yourself down because you're like, oh man, how did I do this? Because you basically have to get yourself back into game mode again because the game's still going on. Even though you lost the no hitter, I'm not saying you did, but what I'm saying is when a pitcher does that, it tends to lead to big innings where you give up a hit, another hit, walk, granny, and then just right there, it's 4-0. So how did you keep yourself from not losing focus, even though you still had the no hitter? You didn't give up a hit, but how did you keep yourself from, basically putting yourself down in a sense?
Usually when I pitch every game, even that game, I tend to at the end of every inning, we shake our hand, we bring it in, we pick each other up, and I usually sit on the bench by myself with my head down and wait until the end of the inning and go back out. And I kind of just focus on breathing, thinking about what I could have done better that previous inning, and going out and just pitching. I mean, I try not to think too much because if I overthink, then I'm going to start to try to be a perfectionist, which isn't the best thing. So I kind of try to stay calm and focus on breathing and not overthink, really.
That's smart. Don't be like us lefties. We overthink and we're a little crazy. Don't be like that. Don't do that. you know, but just keep shoving, man, because you've done a fine job this season. And before I let you go, Brandon, you're going to UConn Avery Point to be able to continue your career. Talk to me about how UConn Avery Point became a factor for you and being able to now in the fall play for, because you play for a very good coach at Killingly, my guy Ben. Now you're
Yeah.
going to now another one of my guys and Coach Ratch. Talk to me about that.
Honestly, I didn't even know about UConn Avery Point until Coach Ben, he shot me a text. He was like, Nate is getting looked at by Avery Point, and they're looking for uncommitted 2022 pitchers. And he was like, he needs a pitcher to throw a bullpen to show his receiving, blocking, all that, just show him behind the plate. And you're my top guy other than Jay, who's already committed to Rick, and he's looking for arms. And that's how I really got on their radar. And I threw the bullpen. Coach Ratch and me talked after that, and then we kept in contact. And I had another workout well, not really a workout, but my pitching coach is in Groton. So it was like 10 minutes away from Avery Point. So he came down, watched me throw. And then after that, we kind of talked, and then I committed there.
Man, it's one of those things where everything happens for a reason. I know at some points maybe it was a little bit, I don't want to say sad, but maybe disheartening a little bit that there wasn't really any attention. But kind of like the way my next guest will be from UConn Avery Point, the Coggenshaw Alex Mack or Mocker. I have to look to see how you say his last name, but he was a late bloomer. He was a guy who, because of the lost season, kind of like you, missed that developmental time. And he started to really pop towards the end of his career. He was committed to go to UConn every point, and now he's killing it. And I think the same thing, and I don't want to say that you're going to, mimic him, because every pitcher develops in their own way. But I feel like the late bloomers, the guys who, like yourself, the lean, athletic, 6'2", 6'3" guys who find themselves and go, build into their bodies, really can kind of see the development. And I think UConn every point and Killingly are going to be the beneficiaries of that, man. So keep doing what you're doing, man. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem, bud. But I really do appreciate you coming on. Best of luck for you with Killingly. And now I know you're pitching tomorrow, so I won't ask you, what kind of pitches you're going to throw to these guys, because let them guess. Let them guess. But best of luck tomorrow, and then also too in states, because Killingly will be in the state tournament, and they'll be looking for a little bit of a deeper run than last year. And I have a sneaky suspicion that you guys may sneak up on some teams, and they should not take you lightly by any means.
Yeah, we're looking for that. We're coming back from last year.
Now, wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. RCT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Joey. Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.